Graham has taken Dina, but Tessa and Mariah have finally had some words. Stay tuned for this week's Restless Wrap.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Restless Wrap. We've had one crazy week, but that's usually the week that it's been on Young and Restless, so I am not surprised. My name is Rachel Goodman. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Rach Goodman or on Facebook at Rachel Ann Goodman. We also have a Facebook page for Restless Wrap. It's at Restless Wrap. So if you want to go over there and like the page, follow it. You'll be informed every week when I post the link for the show, and you won't have to go looking for it. So let's dive into this week's episodes and start talking. But first, I wanted to give just a little shout out to Christophe St. John, and I am so sorry if I'm butchering his name, but he's the actor who plays Neil on The Young and Restless. And basically, he has, the reports are saying allegedly that he may have run into some mental health issues and that he's now in the hospital recovering. So I just wanted to say that I and all of us, all the fans out there, we wish him a speedy recovery, and that mental health is no joke and nothing to be taken lightly. And I wish him the best in his recovery process. So before we get into the episodes, I'm just going to give a shout out. We have a lot of awesome fans in the chat. Like usual, you guys are amazing. Thank you for being here. We have Aaron Brody, we have Hubby Joe, Demo, we have Candace Mack, D'Italian Cole, Simone Francois, Doulaman. Thank you guys so much for joining today. And so far, in the chat, we've kind of been talking a little bit about, a lot about Graham. On top of that, we've been talking about Billy and Phyllis. Wow, I think I just combined their names to Philly. But for everyone who wants them to break up, we do not need to give them a name. So I take it back. A lot of people, a couple of people talking about Phyllis. And, okay, so let's start with Graham, because that seems to be the big topic right now. So when we got into earlier on in the week, basically we had just, the following week we'd seen Dina on the floor. We didn't know if she was alive or if she had, passed out, or if there was some medical condition that we just didn't know about. But she was down. And I didn't think she had actually died. It didn't seem soapy enough that they would have just killed the character off like that and left it that way. But basically, for the first couple of episodes, she was just kind of lying in the hotel room, and no one really knew what was going on. No one knew she was sick in the first place and that she was passed out. Graham didn't bother doing anything about it. He just kind of left her like that, which especially irritates me because of what ends up happening in the hospital when they finally get her there. But basically, just kind of leading up to the point where Ashley finds her, Dina, we see Ashley and Tracy having this conversation. And the big thing seems to be that even though Ashley already knows that she is not biologically an Abbott, she sort of, in a way, she's gotten over it. But her big thing is that she didn't want the whole world to know. And finally, she's recognizing, and Jack's recognizing, and all the Abbotts are recognizing that, yes, the people in that dinner room, they did hear Dina say that Brent was the father. So it was interesting to see Ashley struggle with this. And it's just a brand new issue for her to deal with. And I really think that in this moment, Ashley's acting was spot on. To me, she's one of the strongest actresses on the show, especially what she brings to the character. But in the moment where she was really teary-eyed and just talking about how she didn't know how she was going to deal with everyone knowing about this, that was a very powerful moment to me. And I especially loved when Ashley was talking to Abby and said to her that, no, it doesn't matter who you are who you're related to biologically. Your grandfather was John Abbott, and my father was John Abbott. So I loved that moment. I loved how Ashley's strength came through, even though this was a terrible moment. They're dealing with Graham, who was just terrible, but Ashley was still able to stay strong. So basically, Ashley goes, she finds Dina on the floor, passed out. Of course, she isn't just able to get in the room. Graham happens to be passing by, and he lets her in with the key. So I guess that was nice of him. But Ashley's the one who had to basically call the hospital and get Dina out of there. If Graham cares so much, which we all know he doesn't, but if he did, why didn't he get her out of there when she first passed out? So that's what really bugs me the most, because in the hospital, Graham doesn't let her own children see her. And it just kind of stinks because she didn't get a chance to change her will, and Graham is power of attorney, of course. So he does everything in his power to keep her children out of that room. And then in the actual room, he tries to con Dina again and says, come on, you know I actually care about you. You would have seen right through me if I didn't. And I guess he kind of has a point, but I don't know. I don't really buy it, because if he really cared about her, he would have called the hospital. He would have called, 911 instantly to get her out of there. The longer she was sitting there, the worse off she was going to get, especially because we find out it was a stroke. So you can't tell me that Graham actually cares. He is just all about words, but his actions say completely otherwise. So let's see. In the chat, we do have some comments here. Doolaman, I was here for Graham until this week. Ugh. Yeah, because until this week, I was kind of thinking that Graham's mother was the one pulling the shots and that Graham was just kind of going along with it. The way the actor was playing it, it almost seemed like Graham, the character, was not 100% certain what he wanted to do. And it was one of those things where he seemed like he was questioning whether he cared or didn't care about Dina and her family. Aaron Brody says, I can't believe you just walked out and left Dina on the floor. Yeah, I know. And that's the thing. You claim you care about this person so much, you left her there. Herd Mentality says, he's so ballsy, left her there, then came right back and stole her. Yeah. Demo says he wanted her to die so he could get that money. Yeah. And he does not want Dina to change her will, because that is going to be his ultimate revenge tactic with his mother, I think, is so that maybe, I don't know if he's going to actually try to kill her, but even if he doesn't, he wants her to believe that, he wants Dina to believe that he, Graham, cares about her so that she doesn't change her will. Doolaman, they made him into a cartoon villain. Yeah, that's the thing, is that if it turns out that Graham does not care about Dina and that he's just trying to kind of work the system, then yeah, I think he is more cartoony, because I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm reading him, maybe the way that he should be read is that he is having a hard time struggling with this, and he is just not able to really think on his own because his mother's controlling him. But if it turns out that that's not it, then yeah, he does seem cartoony. Demo says, couldn't stand Graham at the hospital, wanted to throw something at him. I completely agree with you, Demo. Then we have Simone says, Graham is straight crazy. How can he say with a straight face that he truly cared about her, but you leave her for dead? Yeah, exactly. And that, there's always moments when characters can be redeemed and when they can't be redeemed. And I feel like Graham, up until the moment he leaves Dina in the hotel room, I felt like he could have been redeemed, because there hadn't been anything bad that he had really done, and we didn't know for certain whether or not he was starting to care about Dina or not. So, but yeah, when he left her in the hotel room, no. To me, he instantly became unredeemable. Now we have a couple people talking about Ashley. Yeah, Hubby Joe says Ashley was very strong in that scene. D'Italian Cole, Ashley and Graham could pass for blood siblings. That was another thing I was curious about, if they actually were siblings, but they're playing it off like Brent is not Graham's biological father, that he was just a stepfather that Graham grew close with. So I don't know, though, because I'm with you on that. I think that they could be brother and sister. They kind of look like they could be, and it might be more interesting if it turns out they are, because then Graham would really be torn, because he, on the one hand, he's loyal to his mother, of course, but then on the other, he doesn't want to, well, you would think he wouldn't want to hurt his sister, but who knows. Doolman says, I was mad at Jack and Tracy and Ashley for not tearing down that fence to get to their mother. I was frustrated. I don't think I was frustrated at them, but I was frustrated at the situation because they got so far. They almost had her, and it was even more frustrating that Dina didn't seem to know what was going on because she was so drugged out. And the fact that the doctor would let her leave in the first place bugs me, because she had just had a stroke. I don't know. I mean, I guess a doctor would let her leave because Graham was the power of attorney, and maybe it was his right to say, okay, well, I'm going to take her home with me. But still, that doctor didn't show any compassion, especially toward the kids. Not letting her kids see her at all? Interesting. Just didn't, yeah, the doctor didn't seem to even care. Aaron Birdie says, I think it would make more sense if they were brother and sister. Demo agrees, yes, brother and sister seems believable. Alan McLaurin says, do you think that Ash will turn out to be a biological Abbott after all? I mean, the way they've been playing it, I don't think so, because Dina seems to know for a fact that Ashley is Brent's biological daughter, so I don't think so, but we'll find out. It's always possible they could write something else in that changes it, but that would be interesting. So, okay, as this is happening with Graham and Ashley, we also have Abby, who runs into Scott. And I think that was pretty interesting to mention, because Scott and Abby, obviously they fight a lot, but now it really does seem like Scott is starting to become interested in Abby, especially after what Zach said to him, that Zach basically, if Scott wasn't dating Sharon, Zach would be jealous that Scott might be after Abby. So I found that interesting, that, obviously they are kind of going in that direction. And then when Abby runs into Scott, basically Scott would say, hey, are you okay? It didn't seem like someone who was just a friend. It seemed like someone who might care about, it seemed like Scott cared about her on a deeper level. And then when they were hugging each other, yeah, it was very obvious that both of them were thinking, okay, what's going on? Because they seem to really be enjoying that hug, if you know what I mean. So we have a couple comments in the chat still talking about the DNA test. Well, Alan said they never did a DNA test on Ashley. This is true. So it's very possible they could try to throw that on her, and then maybe she'd be even more confused, or maybe it would just kind of settle her soul. Who knows? Doolaman, true, they never did a DNA test. She could be an Abbott. Demo, Abby and Scott don't want Sharon to get burned. That's true. I agree with you. And I like Sharon a lot as a character right now. I know that people who've been watching YNR for a long time tell me that she's had her moments. But from what I've seen, and for as long as I've been watching, I like Sharon as a character. I just personally don't know. Like Sharon and Scott, they seem like a good couple, but I just feel like maybe Scott and Abby might be stronger, might be more meant for each other. But you guys tell me, are you more for Scott and Abby, or do you want to see Scott and Sharon stay together? Candace Mack says, I like how Abby used her past, saying how she thought Brad was her dad, but it was really Victor. I like that too. Yeah. I liked how she brought that up, because if anyone should be really confused, it should be Abby, because especially with the Victor situation. Demo says, Zach was telling Scott to kill the sex ring story for his magazine. Scott may suspect what Zach is doing. I agree with that too, because that's the thing with, I think we can all agree that Scott is definitely trying to do something, or that Zach is trying to definitely do something to Scott. What Zach's up to with him, I guess we'll have to find out, but clearly he's trying to sabotage this sex ring story that Scott is planning on writing. Yeah, I kind of get the feeling that Scott is probably going to figure out what Zach's up to. Zach's being pretty obvious that, he's a little too interested in this. Aaron Brody says, right, Candace, I forgot about that too, with everything between Abby finding out that Victor was really her father. And Aaron says, I like Scott and Abby better. Sharon belongs with Nick. I agree with you. I want Sharon with Nick so badly. It's not like I don't like Scott. I think Scott and Sharon do work well together, and Scott has been there for Sharon, and especially with the sex ring. I want Nick and Sharon back. Candace says, actually, back in the 80s, I think Ashley did, because I recall them saying that Jack, Ashley, and Victor knew she wasn't an Abbott. Oh, so there may have been a DNA test. Aaron says, right, Demo, Sharon belongs with Nick. Alan says, Zach has the upper hand with everything right now. Yeah, exactly. I agree. And we did have J.A. said, Rachel, about the show taking calls. If anyone is watching live right now and wants to call in, our number is 424-253-0749. Again, if anyone is watching live right now and wants to call in, feel free. It's 424-253-0749. So Herd Mentality says, Victor, Nick, and their war. How long until the baby's paternity blows Chelsea and Nick apart? Tick, tick. Interesting. And then we have Aaron saying, get rid of Juliet. Okay, so I think we've talked enough about Graham and Ashley and everything going on with that. I'm trying to, let's see. So basically, the big thing was that, Dina left on the plane. We think that she's going to Boca Raton, Florida, because in the very beginning of the week, that's where Graham was mentioning he wanted to go. So the only other thing I want to mention about Graham, and then we'll move on, is when right after, like this is before Graham takes Dina and they fly away. Right after they take Dina's gone missing, and well, Graham comes out and he says, if you make it worth my while, we have a call coming in. Thanks for calling the AfterBuzz YNR show. This is Rachel. Who do we have on the line?
It's Candace Mack, Rachel.
Hey, Candace. How are you? Long time no talk.
I know, right?
So I was just finishing up talking about Graham and just mentioning that, like, toward the end when they're in the hospital, when Graham basically says, hey, if you make it worth my while, you can go see your mother. What do you think about that craziness?
Okay, first and foremost, he's such a lying snake in the grass, but he's so cute. The actor who plays him, he is so cute, and he has great, like, villain sex appeal. I'm going to put it. I just didn't like how all that went down, and I felt bad, not only for Jack, Tracy, and Ashley, but for Dina, too, because she didn't know she was a piece in a game or something like that Graham, was playing her against everything else. And I think with Graham, right now it's like, I have all this control and you have nothing. Because even when he was trying to get her to sign, when Jack was saying, you need to sign over the will, you need to give it to your children. I mean, come on now. First and foremost, why would you say that knowing that Graham was probably lurking around, which he was?
Yeah.
And when Dina said, I remember everything, I remember this, da-da-da-da, and of course that led to her, collapsing. I can't with him. And then his little small comment when Ashley was like, well, so it was something about her father, and he had made a comment and said, oh, which one?
Yeah. Well, it's something, yeah.
Really? I can't with him. And like I said, I can't believe when he left Dina on the floor like that, I was like, yep, that's his whole modem. He just don't care.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that if he hadn't done that, maybe it'd be harder to figure out what his real motive was, but him leaving her like that, yeah, it's pretty obvious he just wants her to die so he can get that money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but when he made a phone call to his mom and said, I have something, I think was, I have to see you face to face or whatnot. So I don't know. I'm wondering where he took Dina.
Yeah.
If she's going to Florida, or is it Paris or Timbuktu? I don't know.
Yeah, because why would he take Dina to the mother if the goal is to see? That's where it kind of gets a little convoluted, because we don't know if the goal is to just to bring the news out in the open so that everyone knows the truth about Ashley, or if the goal was to steal her inheritance, or what the goal was, or if it's going to turn into a murder plan. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, that was the thing, because when Ashley's whole thing, and I recall bits and pieces of when the first story happened, thanks to my great grandmother. She had, like Jack told them, Ashley had a nervous breakdown to the point where they were really concerned about her. Fast forward, Ashley, like you said, is being very strong about it. And she put her family and her friends ahead. She was thinking about them more so of herself. But now it's like, it's an interesting dynamic that she has with Dina now. Because for a long time, Ashley just couldn't stand Dina. And now it's kind of a changing of the heart.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think Grams is jealous of the fact that Dina has formed a bond with her children.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that that's kind of what it boils down to as well, is that he does care in a really sick way. And he may not be the best person, but he's also very jealous of her children, and otherwise he wouldn't just keep bringing them up like that, like, oh, they'll never be as close to you as I am, they'll never do for you what I do. He is kind of like the jealous child, which made me think for a second that maybe until they brought his mom in, I was wondering what his relationship to Dina was actually. But I'm also curious too, because if Ashley and Graham are brother and sister.
I mean, I think they've done a good job of trying to convince us of that because for a while I did think that was the case, that Grams was Brett's son, biological son, and was jealous of Ashley or whatnot. But when he said that that Brett was the stepson, I'm like, oh, okay, okay. And it kind of made sense because, like you said, that was the only man in his life. And Brett chose to go back to Dina and leave Dom hanging. So I think it's just a jealousy situation.
Yeah, that's definitely what it sounds like. So we'll have to see what they do to Dina and what happens, because like you said, it does seem like at this point Ashley was trying to have some kind of relationship with her. And
she was doing it more so, like, first she was doing it for Abby, because Abby wanted to know her grandmother.
Yeah.
And then she saw how Jack was, and Ashley would do anything for Jack, and to have, for Jack to have his mommy back. And that's what, I don't know if anybody picked up on it, when Grams was willing Dina away with Jack, how Jack said mommy.
I don't think I caught that. Wow.
It was, I have too much time on my hands, folks. When it was like saying, Mom, and he's like, Mommy, it sounded like a little boy, like being separated from his mom.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah.
Yep. So that's an interesting story. I think that's one of the best stories right now going for Young The Restless.
Yeah, because we also have, so I guess we can get into Tessa and Mariah a little bit too while you're on the line. That, to me, how do you feel about the direction they're taking that right now?
Okay, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, they need to speed it up. I think they're doing it right. They're having Mariah, it's more so a Mariah's, it is a love story, but it's Mariah's self-discovery.
Yeah.
And that's how I said it to somebody, because Mariah is a little confused. Keep in mind, we don't know all about Mariah's history. We only know bits and pieces of it. And I like the fact that she's talked to Kevin. You know, she kind of was, you know, because, well, Kevin's everybody's best friend. But, you know, and she's struggling with the truth herself. And then, you know, Sharon, you know, they had a great scene, and I was like, thank you, that's a great mother-daughter. I personally think they're pacing it correctly. And I think because they're changing the writers, well, you know, as of Wednesday, it'll be Mal Young doing both things, the executive producing and writing. I think they're just taking their time. They're pacing it. They want to make it a really good story to tell.
Yeah. And I think so as a fan and a viewer, it's frustrating because I want it to happen already, but I do agree with what you're saying, and I think that they probably are pacing it correctly. It's just, you know, like, and it is mainly, I think it's not only just Mariah's discovery, but Tessa as well, because it's kind of like what you said with Mariah. We also don't know too much about Tessa, do we? Because she is she hasn't been around on the show that long, right? Like, she's a pretty new character. So I feel like so it's Mariah's discovery, Tessa's, and I think that Tessa also still has a lot of baggage emotionally that she has to deal with, and I think it goes beyond, you know, being in a relationship with Noah. I think that she just has a lot to work out in general.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's going to be an interesting story because, like I said, I mean, they're taking their time with this storyline. I know, like I said, I know some people are like, okay, can we hurry this up? But I personally, as a fan of Young The Restless, I like when a storyline is, depending on what kind of storyline it is, I like it when they're pacing because you're getting both sides. You know, you have Mariah and Tessa talking, and Mariah's like, well, what's going on with you? How come da-da-da-da?
Yeah.
I like when they sit down and talk things out rather, you know, for the action to happen, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that the fact that they're going to be separate for a little bit, and they were talking about Tessa going on tour, maybe it'll give them both some time apart so that they can realize how they not just feel about each other, but that they actually want to be together. Because I think at this point, I'm pretty convinced that they both have feelings for each other, but I think it's just that they don't know what they want to do about those feelings. Well, Tessa, I think she knows that she just wants to be with Noah, but I think Mariah was obviously leaning more toward Tessa and being with her. But yeah, it'll be really interesting how they handle this, how it plays out, and maybe that distance will be what it takes for them to realize they do want to be together.
I just want to know, like, I think Sharon is kind of putting two and two, well, not two and two together, but she's figuring something out. But I think the big reveal, I want to know which one, is it going to be Noah or is it going to be Devon that figures it out too?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think Devon is probably going to figure it out first. He is already a little suspicious at times. I don't think he realizes anything yet, but like, you know, when Mariah has canceled on him, or he should just, I think he knows, but I don't think Noah has any idea, or sorry, I don't think Devon knows about Tessa, but I think he knows something's up, but I don't think Noah thinks anything's wrong at all.
My heart's going to break for Noah, to be honest, too, because he's unlucky in love.
Yeah, I feel bad for him, but, you know, at the same time, if Tessa doesn't feel for him as much as she feels for Mariah, then she's doing him a favor. But yeah, he's not going to see it that way at first.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for calling in.
Not a problem. I'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah. We'll talk to you next time.
Okay.
Bye,
Candace. Bye.
Awesome. So, I guess just to touch a little bit more on Tessa and Mariah, the only other thing I wanted to mention is that now Sharon thinks something might be up with the two of them, but Sharon doesn't think it is what it actually is, if you know what I mean. Sharon thinks that Mariah might be kind of mirroring Tessa's relationship off of her and Devon. So basically, Sharon's warning was, hey, you don't have to rush with Devon just because you see Tessa and Noah rushing into something. And I think the way Sharon was worried was she was thinking that Mariah might feel insecure that her best friend isn't going to be around as much because she's living with her boyfriend. Oh, and we have someone calling. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Rachel.
Hey. How are
Hi,
you?
I'm so, yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm just happy I was able to catch the show before it was off tonight.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. We were just kind of touching on like the last parts of the whole Tessa Mariah situation.
Oh, okay. You know, I think that's such an interesting situation. I think that Tessa Mariah. Well, first of all, I feel I think it's such a beautifully written, and I think the actress is playing Mariah is breaking my heart. You know, just with all the longing looks and the beautifully timed, just everything. The acting, the writing is so beautiful in that storyline.
Yeah.
I think that with everything that happened with the sex ring, you know, it was pretty outrageous, pretty campy for a soap opera. But them reining it in, making it more intimate, and really going deeper into this, you know, Mariah exploring her, exploring her sexuality with a woman that she loved after they got out of something so horrific is very, very moving. But, you know, I'm very interested to see, I think like the previous call, I'm interested to see in a different perspective Sharon's reaction, not to Mariah's sexuality, but to the fact that how would she feel when she has two of her children wanting the same woman, and how, and it's such a you know, new way of doing it. You never see on the soap opera to have one of your children, whether, you know, they're gay or bisexual, going head to head with their sibling who is opposite sex for the same woman. You know what I'm saying? So that's such a different, something they've never done in the daytime, and I would be very interested to see how Sharon, you know, comes down on how she supports both her children. Yeah,
and that'll be a really interesting situation to watch play out too, because it's like we were saying in the last call. It's you know, Mariah is discovering herself, even Tessa's discovering herself, and so I think seeing how Noah handles this and the reaction to, you know, how he deals with a broken heart, that'll be the saddest part to see, because he clearly does love Tessa, but it'll be interesting to see, like you said, how Sharon reacts to this, how she, you know, what kind of advice she has for the situation.
Yeah, I think it has to be almost like you just said. I mean, it probably has to be almost a landmine for a mother to go, oh my gosh, I have one person who's desperately in love and feel like they can't sleep, can't walk, can't eat, can't do anything because they're so in love and you know, and discovering themselves, and they're hurting, and it's going to be painful and an adjustment. It's going to be just, you got to be very delicate with it. Then you have you have my son, who is, like you said, brokenhearted, and he's going to be shocked that his own sister is having this. So it's going to be a very touchy thing for Sharon to maneuver. But because the actress is so brilliant, Sharon Case is so brilliant, that she'll be able to do wonderful work with it. And you know, I think this is a great year for both her and Eileen Davidson. I know you talked a little bit about the Abbotts. You know, one thing I wanted to say before I go is that the actor who plays Graham, he is a handsome man. He's a very handsome man. But what I found that, first off, Eileen Davidson did spectacular work this week, and this past over, she just was out of the stratosphere. She put it into the space somewhere with all that beautiful acting. But I thought it was so awkward that you had the Abbott family, all those brilliant actors going toe to toe, just like hitting out the park, and you had this other, you know, person who played Graham, and I didn't really feel like he matched them with the acting and sort of with the nuances. You know, even the mom who's sick and who was like a mystery where she's at, she's also been doing great work. But again, the actor sort of, he's been like a little thud a little bit. Like he's not really been eating up the scenery. He's not really been doing, you know, things that I think is really on the level of those people. I feel like you see, I think that he's almost like a knockoff of Adam. You know, Adam was a character, you know, many incarnations of Adam, but this is sort of like classic Adam, to be scheming and trying to take advantage of people and probably want them to die so he can get their money. It's just, you know, I wish it was a different actor doing it, because it's a very meaty role.
Yeah.
And to have all those superstar actors going full blown and really giving it to you, and you're hitting against with this guy, it didn't work for me. You know, some of those things.
And I
only when a family. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you too. I think the problem for me with Graham is that I thought he was playing it a certain way, but I think the reality is that maybe, like, to me, kind of like what you were saying too, is that maybe his acting isn't up to par, because I really was reading it like, okay, he is maybe childlike and he doesn't really know what he's doing, even though he's an adult. He has maybe the mind of a child, and that his mother's running the shots. But the more that we're getting into this, the more I'm thinking, no. Graham is probably running the game, and it's probably just the acting that's just not on the same level as everyone else on the show.
Yeah, and I think that, yeah, and see, thank you for that perspective, because I didn't even think about the character's sort of stinted reality based on, being like a child, like Adele. I would say for people in Soap, they probably can turn right to General Hospital and see Michelle Stafford was a great actress. Do the same thing, but again, played with all the nuances. She catches all the things. She was a woman who was in a coma for 20 years. She came out, felt like she was 17,
Wow.
So the way she acted was like a girl, was a teenager, but again, in the hand of an actress like her,
Yeah.
she hits out the park. She was on Young The Restless too as Phyllis. But so I see what you're saying there, but I guess it takes somebody with chops
Yeah.
to be able to really some of that stuff. Yeah, I think that's about it for me. But I think, again, it has been great. And, everything, I'm really interested to see what Sharon does. The storyline with the Abbotts is fantastic. I mean, really fantastic. And I still don't like Billy for some reason. I just still don't like him. I don't, at this point, I wouldn't want him to be with Phyllis or with Victoria. I really wouldn't, because he just annoys me so much. I just,
I'm starting to agree with you too on that. All those times Billy could have told Phyllis, and that she was kind of waiting for him to tell her the truth, and he still didn't do it. I'm starting to get a little annoyed with him too. And I think that if he would do this to Phyllis, he'd do it to Victoria or whoever else.
Right. And see, the thing that's so crazy too, even his conversations with Kane, when he was trying to gloat and stuff like that, I'm thinking, please, you all, if I was him, if I was Kane, I'd be like, Kane was hitting a couple of good points, and he was really bringing home that, listen, I was always going to be third wheel. Y'all, somehow or another, if it wasn't this woman who I still don't believe is, telling the truth about the night they were together, it was going to be another reason. I was the third man out, and y'all use every excuse in the book to make me the villain. And so I'm not going to stay here and take this letter with it when, y'all were handing the power back and forth. Y'all didn't see me. Every idea I had, you put down. So, of course, he was at that time was thinking about, hey, let me shake this up, because I can't work here with this woman who's in love with this man, and she's not being fair when it comes to business. Everything he says, she thinks is gold. I'm making some good points here, and then he made a couple of big mistakes. Of course, it ruined his family,
Yeah.
But Victoria was playing a lot of favoritism, and they don't own that. They don't own how unfair they were, and exactly why they can't feel the need to do the scheme that he did, because Victoria and Billy wanted what they got. They wanted just to be two of them. And they didn't really want Kane there. So the way they turned on him and all that kind of stuff is crazy. I still hope that the situation with Kane and that woman who claimed that she's slept with him and that has his baby, I hope it all clears up.
Yeah.
And
if
turned
she
out
doesn't
to
go
be a
live
lie.
with him. Well, she did. Yeah.
Everybody be eating crow. So I hope that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for calling in, and we will catch you soon.
Yeah, I thank you. I missed it, 'cause I think you had a co-host there a couple of times. I think that's when I tried one time, but it wasn't available. And I would have really loved to call in that time when you have like people there to play with. I love talking to you, but when you had the other co-hosts there, it was great too.
Yeah.
And you can call and get into it a little bit with you all. So I hope that happens. Again, you do a great job, and I'm continue watching here. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, so we'll I'm sure we'll do this again next week. So feel free to call back in.
I look forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we have a couple more minutes left here. So we were starting to talk about Lily, Kane, Brash, and Sassy. Let's just kind of briefly touch on everything with Kane really fast. So, let's go back to Lily. So Lily finally talks to Jordan, and she says she wants to talk about the two of them. So I was thinking that she was going to say, yeah, let's go ahead and start dating, because this is right after Victoria said that Jordan's an independent contractor and that if Lily were to date Jordan, it wouldn't be a problem at all. So I was thinking that's where that was heading, but instead, Lily basically said she needed to work on herself first, and that was it, and she didn't want to date Jordan. And then, as soon as they showed that scene, then they kind of showed Kane and Lily having a conversation that looked like it might be them kind of reconciliating, but then it didn't. And then we get to Kane and Juliet. Basically, Juliet ends up coming to Kane's defense when Victoria is kind of sort of like yelling at, well, not yelling at Kane, but basically they get into an argument, and Victoria, before she leaves, this is after Juliet has defended Kane, she says something along the lines of, I feel bad for that baby since you're the parents, and then she leaves. And then Kane invites Juliet to come and live with him. So at this point, obviously Kane just wants to, like, he's letting his marriage go. He knows it's over. And he is starting something with Juliet. That's what it seems like anyway. The only other thing is Victoria, we see her get into an accident. I kind of felt like that was coming when she was in the car. And it just seemed like they were holding on that shot for a little bit too long. So I'll be curious to see what actually happens with that. And Brash and Sassy, it's pretty much just we get so Victoria and Lily have a conversation. Victoria at this point doesn't want Billy to tell Phyllis what he's done, and she just wants Billy to let go and just forget about it. But obviously Phyllis knows, and she keeps hinting at, Billy says he has something to tell Phyllis, and so Phyllis thinks that Billy's finally going to tell her what he's done on her computer, but instead Billy starts talking about the Abbotts and everything that happened with Ashley, and that's his big secret he's going to tell her. So I'll be curious what happens with that relationship. If Phyllis is going to actually confront him, which was the advice that she was given by Michael, to just confront Billy and tell him what she knows, that would be the wisest choice, but it doesn't seem like that's the choice she's going to go with. So let's go and get into our law moment of the week then. So I know this wasn't the funniest moment ever, but when Jack, Tracy, and Ashley were all at the gate and they were watching the flight leave, and Jack has the sunglasses on his head and he's shaking his head, that actually kind of made me laugh. Just the grin not the grin, just like the teeth, like showing his teeth and shaking his head with the sunglasses, it made me laugh. And then later on, when Lily was walking into Hillary, but she literally walks into her at the gym. Like, okay, Lily is coming up behind Hillary. Hillary has weights in her arms, and Lily just basically walks right into Hillary. And then and Hillary goes, whew. Like, okay, so first of all, kind of seemed coincidental that would happen. But second of all, Lily, you saw she was using weights. You probably saw what she was doing. Why do you have to walk into someone that closely? Kind of walk around them so you don't get hit. So I just thought it was funny all around what happened in that situation. Okay, so just the last couple of minutes here. Let's get into some predictions.
And now, your AFTERBUZZ TV predictions.
I think Kane's gonna get with Juliet. I think that Mariah and Tessa aren't going to see each other for a while, and that maybe they'll be able to clear their minds and kind of figure out what they want to do. Everything going on with Graham, I think that it's either a murder scheme or he's just kind of, I don't know, maybe he's going to kidnap her, but kind of basically manipulate her so that it's not really a kidnapping, that it's more like Graham is convincing Dina that she should stay with him, and that, you know, obviously Jack and Ashley and Tracy are all going to try to get Dina back. The other thing is I hope that Zach is finally someone's going to figure out what's happening with him. Maybe Tessa. Zach now knows that Tessa is not going to stop till everyone's in jail and that's involved with the sex ring. So Tessa is now on Zach's radar for a different reason. So hopefully someone figures out what he's doing soon. And then I'm just going to end this by kind of reading some of our final comments. Hubby Joe says, all the gym moments are funny. Aaron says, right, they need to discuss what's wrong with Victoria's head. Herd mentality. Victoria just hit Juliet with her car drama. Yeah. Taylor Jones says, Juliet, please fall off the face of the earth. And then Demo, Billy and Phyllis will break up finally. I hope that happens because I am not really a Billy and Phyllis fan. I don't know that I'm a Billy and Victoria fan anymore, but I'm definitely not Phyllis, or Philly, as I accidentally said earlier on in tonight's episode. Candace Mack says, my prediction is Victoria's health problems will be serious. Yeah, they've got to be. If this is happening since July, there's something that's not right. Aaron says, right, that would have been better if Victoria hit Juliet with the car. That would be very, very interesting and a lot more conflict. And I would kind of buy it. All right, well, that about wraps up our show for tonight. Again, I want to thank everyone in the chat, the people who called in, and also everyone that's in the chat commenting and just being part of the show. I could not do this without you guys, and it's so awesome having co-hosts here. And I'm going to leave with the Halsey song, Bad at Love, because I kind of feel like it's pretty perfect for everything happening on YNR. Bye, guys. Oh, and again, I'm Rachel Goodman. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Rach Goodman, or on Facebook at Rachel Ann Goodman. Also, go ahead over to Facebook and go to @RestlessRap. That's where I have our page, so I'll always be posting the link for the shows on there. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in this week. I will see you next Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Bye!
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.